Ole Miss at Tulane. It's interesting. It's kind of like why this game is so important is that like if Tulane beats Ole Miss and they run the table, there's an argument that they should get in to the college football playoffs for sure. There's an argument.
But they would need some help, obviously. But
They need
there's
South
like,
Alabama. They need South Alabama to look really good. They need the AAC to step up more so in some out of conference games. But
well, yeah. And if you're Tulane and you're arguing for precedent, right? You saw Cincinnati do it, where in year one, right, or the year prior, obviously, to making the playoffs, they were really good, really successful, like Tulane was last year. Really good, really successful, beat a really good team in USC in the bowl game. And then you have a quality win in the out of conference. And then you run the table in year two where you have that already predetermined respect. I think that's definitely your pathway if you're Tulane.
yeah, so on that note, I think this Tulane's team's a good football team. I also think this Ole Miss team is also good. Like their starters are good. Their starters are good enough, right? To play at a pretty high level. Um, both teams in the AP top 25. If you're asking me to pick a side, I think I like it's at Tulane, right? Yeah, I don't think
Yes,
it's a neutral
yes,
site
which
game.
is important.
Yeah, I like if you're gonna give me a touchdown, give me Tulane +7. I do think Ole Miss wins the game though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna agree with you there. I think Ole Miss wins. I think Tulane +7. I think Tulane beat a pretty darn good South Alabama team last week, and they were up 24-7 on them in the second quarter, and they kind of made it close in the third quarter. But then, Tulane scored 13 unanswered, to close out the game and pull away. But Michael Pratt, I think, is a really good player. They got some nice pieces on this Tulane team. Jaquan Jackson, obviously a good playmaker for him. And the thing that hesitates me, because if you watched our SEC previews, I was not as high on Ole Miss in terms of longevity and their win total, and neither of us were, I don't think, because the depth is not there. The problem is in week two, Ole Miss played Mercer last week and beat them by like 90. They're healthy, right? And so they avoided injuries,
Oh
and
yeah.
so you're gonna get the A team for Ole Miss instead of if you're week 10, you might get the JV squad with a couple of varsity players sprinkled in there. So that's what's tough if you're Tulane drawing early. If you're Ole Miss, things you have to do, you have to win the game and you have to avoid injuries. If you do that, I don't really care how you look. Move on. It's a tough out of conference game on the road. Give me a win, avoid injuries. That's all I'm gonna ask for. If I'm Lane Kiffin and a fan of Ole Miss, that's all you really care about.
Yeah, if they get an SEC play, especially deep in SEC play, and this team is healthy, like this is a scary team to play when they're healthy, for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
This
for
is an
sure.
unbelievably scary team to play when they're healthy. But yeah, like you talked about win total wise, betting the over is not necessarily there's certain other risks that you have to consider with that. But yeah, so we both like Tulane to cover, but Ole Miss to win. These are both really good teams. So well, I hope Tulane's a good team. I don't really know if they're a good team yet. I hope they're a good team. I love Michael Pratt. Look at him right there. What a stud. What
He
a
was
stud.
14 of 15 last week against a pretty darn good South Alabama team. 14 for 15, 294 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, it's hard to open the season much better than that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ole Miss will be a lot different. Pete Golding there will hopefully try to confuse Michael Pratt in the offense there. But yeah, I think it's a really fascinating game. Credit to
or
Ole
he'll
Miss.
confuse or he'll confuse his defense.
The linebackers won't know what to do. As you saw week one with Deontay Lawson actually for Alabama making plays. But regardless, credit to Ole Miss for going on the road to play Tulane. I think this is awesome for college football. You saw, Purdue did a home and home with Fresno State. I think UCLA is on the road against San Diego State this week. You're seeing more of that, and I
Alabama's
love
going to US or UCF or USF later.
US. Yeah, that's awesome. I think college football needs that.
That's
And
awesome.
if you're a student at Tulane, like you're gonna get up for this game. Like it's 2:30.
Oh
I know it's
yeah.
I know it's hot in New Orleans. Like that's gonna be a rowdy environment. And I think
It's
almost
not
obviously
I was gonna say it's
I,
not a far drive from Oxford to New Orleans at all.